My name is Joshua. I'm 32 years old. And the day I realized I didn't really belong in my own family started with a notification ping. Before I tell you how I brought my brother's perfect world crashing down and took back my life, tell me what time it is where you are and where you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. I was in my office late on a Tuesday. That's usually where you'd find me. I work in crisis management. Basically, when big companies or rich folks mess up, they call me to clean the blood off the floor before the press smells it. I'm good at it. I'm used to cleaning up messes. It's a skill I learned young, mostly thanks to my family. I was reviewing a contract for a client, sipping lukewarm coffee, when my phone lit up. It was a Facebook notification. Now, I'm not big on social media. I don't have time for it. But this was a tag from my Aunt Carol. You know the type. Loves gossip more than oxygen. Always posting blurry photos of her cats or political memes she doesn't understand. She'd written, "Can't believe I'm invited. This wedding is going to be the event of the decade. So proud of our Caleb." Underneath were photos. My stomach dropped. I clicked on them. They were pictures of creamy, heavy cardstock envelopes. There was a wax seal, red, with the family crest my dad, Robert, made up 10 years ago to feel important. Gold calligraphy. It screamed money. It screamed perfect. I zoomed in. Aunt Carol, being Aunt Carol, had proudly posted the guest list insert she'd found in the envelope. She probably thought she was being helpful. I scanned the names. I saw my cousins. I saw the neighbors we grew up next to, people who moved to Florida 5 years ago. I saw my dad's golf buddies. I even saw the name of the mailman who delivered our mail when I was 12. Name after name after name. Then I looked for mine. I searched once, then twice. I used my finger to trace the alphabetical order. J. There was Jackson. There was Jeremiah. There was no Joshua. I sat back in my leather chair, the silence of the empty office pressing in on me. Surely this was a mistake. Printing error. Maybe my invite was sent separately because I was family? I mean, I'm the groom's brother. The only brother. I checked my email, my texts, my spam folder. I even checked my physical mailbox at my apartment earlier that day. Nothing. My heart started hammering against my ribs. It wasn't panic. It was a cold, sinking realization. I picked up my phone and dialed my dad. It rang 4 times. He usually picks up on the first ring for Caleb. For me, I always get the feeling he's finishing a sandwich before answering. "Hello." His voice was gruff, distracted. "Hey, Dad," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I just saw Aunt Carol's post about the wedding invites." "Oh, yeah. Carol needs to learn privacy settings," he grunted. "Dad." I cut him off. "I didn't get one." There was a pause. A long, heavy pause. The kind of silence that tells you the answer is going to hurt more than the question. I could hear the TV in the background, probably Fox News or a golf tournament. "Right," he finally said. About that. About that." I repeated. "I'm his brother. Look, Joshua." He sighed, the sound of a man burdened by a nuisance. "It's Caleb's day. He wants everything to be perfect. You know how you two clash. We clash because he's irresponsible and I'm the one who bails him out," I said, my grip tightening on the phone. "See? That attitude." My dad snapped. "That's exactly why. Caleb is under a lot of pressure. He's merging his image with the Sterling family. He doesn't need negative energy. He doesn't need you looking over his shoulder, judging him." "Judging him? I'm his brother, Dad. You invited the mailman. You invited people who haven't seen him in 10 years. It's his day," he said again, like a rehearsed script. "Don't make it about you, Joshua. Just send a gift. Be supportive from a distance. It's better for everyone. Don't make it about you." I let out a small laugh, sharp and hollow. "So I'm banned? From my own brother's wedding." "Not banned," he corrected, his voice dropping to that patronizing tone he uses when he thinks I'm being emotional. "Just omitted. For the sake of peace. We'll have a family dinner afterwards. When the stress is over." Does Mom agree with this? Your mother just wants Caleb to be happy. He's finally settling down, Joshua. He's marrying Emily Sterling. Do you know what that means for this family? For our legacy? We can't afford any incidents. Incidents. As if I was the one who caused them. Got it, I said. My voice was flatter than I expected. Wouldn't want to ruin the picture. Good man, he said, sounding relieved that I wasn't fighting. I knew you'd understand. We'll catch up next week. He hung up, just like that. I stared at the phone. Good man. That's what you say to a dog that stops barking. I walked over to the window of my office. From the 20th floor, the city lights looked like a circuit board. I had built this career. I had built this life. I made a good salary, really good. I drove a nice car, I had a clean record. I was the responsible one. But to them, I was just the friction. The reminder of reality that they desperately wanted to ignore. It wasn't just about a piece of cardstock. It wasn't about the chicken dinner or the open bar. It was the message, loud and clear. You are not one of us. You are useful when we have a problem, but you are invisible when we have a celebration. I felt a burning in my chest, hot and suffocating. It wasn't sadness. I think I was past sadness. It was rage. But it was a cold rage, the kind that sharpens your vision instead of blurring it. I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and looked at the calendar. The wedding was in 3 weeks. Saturday the 15th. I marked it. Not wedding. I typed, the day off. If they didn't want me there, fine. I wouldn't be there. But I had a feeling. A gut instinct honed by 30 years of living in Caleb's shadow, that they were going to regret that decision. Because without the janitor, the trash tends to pile up very, very quickly. To understand why my exclusion wasn't a shock, just the final nail in the coffin, you have to understand the dynamic. You have to understand the golden child and the scapegoat. I sat in my office that night, unable to focus on work. My mind started replaying the tape, the greatest hits of my family's hypocrisy. I opened a blank document on my computer and started typing. Felt like purging poison. Item 1. The Ferrari and the scholarship. I was 18. I had just graduated high school as valedictorian. I had worked my butt off for 4 years, studying while Caleb was out partying. I got accepted into a prestigious summer program in London, a pre-law track that came with a partial scholarship. But I needed $15,000 to cover the rest. Room, board, travel. My parents had a college fund. Or so they said. They had promised me that money. 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, I came home to find a red convertible in the driveway. It wasn't new, but it was flashy. A vintage Ferrari 308. Not a practical car. Toy. Caleb, who was 21 and had just dropped out of his second college semester, was leaning against it, wearing sunglasses, looking like a budget movie star. I went inside, confused. Whose car is that? My dad, Robert, was drinking scotch at the kitchen table. He wouldn't meet my eyes. My mom, Susan, was nervously wiping the counter. It's Caleb's, Mom said softly. He needs a boost, Joshua. He's been feeling really down about school. We thought this would help him build an image, for his networking. Networking? I stared at them. He delivers pizzas, Mom. What networking? He's going to start a business, Dad said, slamming his glass down. He needs to look the part. You have to spend money to make money. Okay, I said, a pit forming in my stomach. But what about my trip? The deposit is due on Monday. Silence. About that, Dad said. We had to use the liquidity for the down payment on the car. And the insurance. Do you know how much insurance is on a Ferrari for a 21-year-old? You spent my college fund on a Ferrari? My voice cracked. I sounded like a child, and I hated it. It's not your fund, Dad snapped. It's family money, and right now your brother needs it more. You're smart, Joshua. You'll figure it out. Apply again next year. Or get a loan. You're the capable one. The capable one. That was their code word for the one we don't have to worry about, so we don't have to care about. Caleb got the car. I lost the London program. I ended up going to a state school and working 2 jobs to pay for it. Caleb wrecked the Ferrari 6 months later showing off to a girl. Item 2. The Porsche and the DUI. Fast forward 5 years. I was 26, just starting at the firm. I was exhausted trying to prove myself. My phone rang at 2 a.m. It was Mom. She was hysterical. "It's Caleb. He's in trouble." I drove out. I always drove out. I found them on a side road, smoke rising from the hood of a Porsche Cayenne. Another image investment my parents had co-signed for. He had wrapped it around a utility pole. Caleb was sitting on the curb, reeking of tequila. He wasn't hurt, just scared. Dad was already there, pacing. "Officer Miller is on his way," Dad said, grabbing my shoulders. His eyes were wild. "Joshua, listen to me. Caleb is up for that promotion at the brokerage firm. If he gets a DUI, it's over. His license, his job, everything. He should have thought about that before he drove drunk," I said, looking at the wrecked luxury SUV. "He can't take the fall," Dad hissed. You have a clean record. You're a lawyer. You know how to handle this. Say you were driving. Are you insane?" Pulled away. "I'm not taking a felony for him. It's a misdemeanor," Dad yelled. "Please, Joshua, for the family. Don't be selfish." Selfish? I didn't say I was driving. I drew the line there. But I did something almost as stupid. I used my legal connections. I called in favors I hadn't earned yet. I got the charges reduced to reckless driving. I paid the fine out of my own pocket because Dad said he was illiquid at the moment. I saved Caleb's career. And how did he repay me? At Thanksgiving that year, he told everyone the story of the crash. But in his version, the road was icy, and I was the one who panicked and gave him bad legal advice that cost him a fine. Everyone laughed. Dad nodded. "Joshua is always so by the book," he said. "No street smarts." Item 3, the birthday. My 30th birthday. A milestone. Mom made a big deal about hosting a dinner. "Just family," she said. "I made your favorite cake." I showed up on time. The house was decorated. But not with happy birthday banners. There were balloons that said, "Congratulations." "What's this?" I asked, holding a bottle of wine I'd brought for myself. "Oh!" Mom clapped her hands. "Caleb just got the listing for the Sterling estate. It's huge, Joshua. We decided to combine the celebration. It's more efficient." Efficient. We sat down to dinner. The conversation was 100% about Caleb. How he charmed the client. How he was going to be rich. How he was dating the daughter, Emily. When Mom brought out the cake, chocolate, my favorite, it had candles on it. But before she lit them, she stopped. "Oh, wait," she said. "Let me take a picture for Caleb's Instagram." She reached down and pulled off the candles that formed the number 30. She smoothed over the icing with her thumb. "There," she said, beaming at Caleb. "Now it looks like a celebration cake. Smile, honey." Caleb grinned, holding a glass of champagne. Flash. "Okay, now we can eat," she said, cutting the cake without putting the candles back on. "Happy birthday, Joshua," she added as an afterthought, sliding a slice toward me. I looked at the mutilated icing. That was my life in this family. A prop, placeholder, something to be smoothed over so the golden child could shine. I sat in my office, reading over the list. The anger in my gut wasn't hot anymore. It was cold. It was solid. The wedding invitation snub wasn't an accident. It was the logical conclusion. They didn't need me anymore. Caleb was marrying into the Sterling family, billionaires. He didn't need my bail money. He didn't need my legal advice. He had a new safety net, a much bigger, shinier one. So I was discarded. "Fine," I whispered to the empty room. "You want to do this without me? Good luck." I didn't know then that luck was the one thing they were going to run out of very, very fast. The morning of the wedding, the sky was that insulting shade of perfect blue. You know, the kind where nature seems to be conspiring with the people who hurt you to give them a flawless backdrop. Technically, I had nothing to do. No suit to pick up. No speech to practice. No groomsman duties. I was the brother of the groom, and I was sitting on my couch in my sweatpants, drinking black coffee. My friend Elena came over around noon. Elena is my associate at the firm, a sharp-tongued woman who knows where all the bodies are buried because she helped me dig the graves. She brought a bottle of expensive bourbon and a look of pity I wanted to wipe off her face. "Stop looking at me like I'm a rescue dog," I said, opening the door. "I'm not," she said, breezing past me. "I'm looking at you like a man who just dodged a bullet. You know, weddings are just funerals with cake." We sat on my couch. I had turned my phone off. I wanted to pretend the day didn't exist. We watched a mindless action movie. We ordered pizza. For a few hours, it worked. I almost forgot that 50 miles away, my entire bloodline was celebrating my exclusion. But you can't outrun the internet. Around 3 p.m., Elena's phone buzzed. Then it pinged. Then it started vibrating like it was having a seizure. She frowned, looking at the screen. "Joshua, ignore it," I said. "It's probably work." "It's not work," she said slowly. "It's wow. It's your Aunt Carol. She's live on Facebook. I don't want to see it." "You really need to see this," Elena said, her voice changing. It wasn't pity anymore. It was shock. I took the phone. The video was shaky, recorded vertically. It looked like it was being filmed from under a table or behind a plant. The audio was a mess of high-pitched feedback and screaming. "Oh my God!" Aunt Carol's voice whispered from behind the camera. "Is someone recording this? He's lost it." The camera jerked and focused on the dance floor. The reception hall was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows, white roses everywhere. But the center of the room was a war zone. There was Caleb, my brother, the golden child. He didn't look golden. He looked deranged. His tuxedo jacket was ripped at the shoulder. His bow tie was gone. His face was a mask of purple rage, veins bulging in his neck. And he had his hands on the bride. He wasn't hugging her. He was gripping her. One hand was clamped around her upper arm. The other was tangled in her hair. Her perfectly styled, expensive wedding hair. He was yanking her head back. "Smile!" he was screaming. The audio clipped because he was yelling so loud. "Why can't you just smile? You're ruining my pictures. You're embarrassing me." Emily, the bride, was sobbing. She looked terrified. "Let go. You're hurting me." "Caleb, stop." Guests were frozen. It was that bystander effect where everyone waits for someone else to move. Then I saw my dad, Robert. He rushed into the frame. "Caleb, let her go. People are watching." Caleb shoved Emily away so hard she stumbled and fell into a waiter carrying a tray of champagne flutes. Crash. Glass shattered everywhere. Caleb spun on Dad. "Shut up. This is my wedding. I paid for this. Well, I'm going to pay for this. Everyone just shut up and listen to me." The video cut out. I stared at the black screen. My heart was pounding, but not from fear. It was that adrenaline spike you get when you see a car crash. "Holy!" Elena whispered. "Did he just assault her? On a live stream?" "He grabbed her hair," I said, my voice cold. "He always gets physical when he loses control. When the image cracks." My phone, which I had turned on, suddenly lit up. "Incoming call, Mom." I let it ring. Once. Twice. "Are you going to answer?" Elena asked. "Let them sweat," I said. It stopped. Then it rang again immediately. And again. I finally picked up on the 5th attempt. "Hello, Joshua." My mother's voice was a sound I'd never heard before. It wasn't the controlling matriarch. It wasn't the sweet manipulator. It was pure, raw panic. She was hyperventilating. "Joshua, thank God. You have to come. You have to come right now." "I thought I wasn't invited," I said. "I thought my presence would cause tension." "Stop it," she screamed. "Don't be cruel right now. It's a disaster. Caleb, he's having a breakdown. He locked himself in the bridal suite. He has a knife. He says he's going to hurt himself. He won't let anyone in." I felt a twitch of concern, instinctive, biological, but I pushed it down. Call the police, Mom. No. No police, she shrieked. The Sterlings are already threatening to sue. If the police come, he'll have a record. It will be the end of everything. You know how to talk to him. He listens to you. You're the only one who can calm him down. He listens to me? I laughed, a harsh bark. Since when? Since he wrecked the Ferrari? Since he got the DUI? He's never listened to me. He uses me. Please, she sobbed. I'm begging you. He's your brother. He's screaming your name. He keeps saying, "Where's Joshua? Why isn't Joshua here?" That stopped me, of course. Now that the walls were crumbling, he wanted the architect to come shore them up. If I come, I said slowly, I'm coming on my terms. I'm not coming to lie for him. I'm not coming to smooth things over with the Sterlings. I'm coming to stop him from killing himself or someone else. And then I'm done. Yes, yes, whatever, Mom cried. Just come. We're at the Grand Oak Resort. Hurry. I hung up. I stood up and grabbed my car keys. You're going? Elena asked, standing up too. I have to, I said. Not to save him, but because if I don't go, they'll spend the rest of their lives blaming me for whatever happens next. I need to finish this. Personally. I'm driving, Elena said, grabbing her purse. You're too angry to drive. She was right. I was angry, but I was also ready. I felt like a soldier who had been discharged finally being called back to the front lines, not to fight the war, but to sign the surrender treaty for the losing side. The drive to the Grand Oak Resort took 40 minutes. Elena drove her Audi with precision, weaving through traffic while I stared out the window. My mind was racing, cataloging every piece of leverage I had. I wasn't going in there empty-handed. I pulled up my banking app on my phone. I pulled up the emails I had saved for years. The in case of emergency folder I prayed I'd never have to use. We pulled up to the venue. It was magnificent. A sprawling colonial mansion with white pillars, surrounded by manicured gardens. But the vibe was wrong. Felt like a crime scene. Police cars were at the gate, lights flashing but no sirens. I'm family, I told the officer at the checkpoint. Joshua, the brother. He looked at his clipboard. You're not on the list, sir. I almost laughed. Trust me, they want me inside. Radio it in. He did. A second later, the gate opened. Even the police were part of the confusion. The parking lot was a graveyard of wealth. I saw Bentleys, Mercedes G-Wagons, a few Ferraris. People were standing by their cars in small clusters, whispering. The women were holding their heels. The men had loosened their ties. They looked shell-shocked. We parked my humble sedan next to a Rolls-Royce Phantom that belonged to Mr. Sterling, the bride's father. I stepped out. The air smelled of jasmine and impending litigation. I walked toward the main entrance. Elena trailed a few steps behind, my silent witness. My father was waiting at the massive double doors. He looked 10 years older than he had on the phone last week. His tuxedo was rumpled, his face gray. When he saw me, his eyes flashed with a mix of relief and habitual anger. You took your time, he snapped. No, thank you. No, sorry. Just accusation. Traffic, I said calmly. Where is he? He's in the green room. He barricaded the door. Emily is, God knows where. Her father is threatening to destroy us. Joshua. Destroy us. Robert grabbed my arm, his grip painful. You need to fix this. Talk to Sterling. Tell him it's a medical episode. Tell him Caleb has been under strain. We can spin this. We can say it was a reaction to medication. I pulled my arm away. Is that what we're doing? Lying? Again? It's not lying. Robert hissed, spit flying. It's damage control. That's your job, isn't it? That's what you do. I do it for clients who pay me, I said, stepping into his personal space. And I do it for people who respect me. You didn't even want me in the building an hour ago. Robert raised his hand, an instinctive reflex to slap me into submission like he used to when I was a teenager. I didn't flinch. I caught his wrist in midair. I held it there. I'm not 18 anymore, Robert, I said, my voice low and dangerous. And you're not the one with the checkbook anymore. Lower your hand. He stared at me, shocked. He saw something in my eyes he hadn't seen before. He saw the end of his authority. He slowly lowered his arm. Just get him out of there, he whispered, defeated. Before the SWAT team goes in. I walked past him into the lobby. It was a wreck. Overturned table. Spilled wine staining the white carpet like blood. Flowers trampled. I made my way down the hallway to the green room. I could hear sobbing from behind the heavy oak door. Not just Caleb's. Muffled voices. I knocked. A sharp, authoritative rap. Go away, Caleb screamed from inside. I'll do it. I swear I'll cut my wrists. It's Joshua, I said. Silence. Then, a shuffling sound. The lock clicked. The door cracked open. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was destroyed. Mirrors smashed. Chairs thrown. Caleb was sitting on the floor in the corner, clutching a silver cake knife. He looked like a frightened child in a ruined man's suit. But he wasn't alone. Emily was there. She was sitting on a sofa on the far side of the room, her knees pulled up to her chest. Her dress, a Vera Wang custom, was torn at the shoulder. Her makeup was streaked with tears. She was shaking. Mr. Sterling, her father, was standing over her, protective, his face a mask of fury. What are you doing here? Caleb looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot. Did you come to gloat? Did you come to see the freak show? I came because Mom said you were going to hurt yourself, I said, looking at the knife. Put it down, Caleb. You're not going to use it. You love yourself too much. You don't know me, he spat. You don't know the pressure. Everyone looking at me. Everyone expecting me to be perfect. And her. He pointed the knife at Emily. She wouldn't listen. She kept nagging me about the timeline, the photos. I just wanted her to shut up. So you attacked her? I asked. I didn't attack her, Caleb yelled. I was correcting her. I grabbed her to make her look at me. It was an accident. I slipped. You dragged her by her hair, Mr. Sterling said, his voice ice cold. I saw the video. The whole world saw the video. It's out of context, Caleb screamed. Joshua, tell them. Tell them how stress affects people. Tell them I'm not crazy. He looked at me, desperate. He wanted the fixer. He wanted the brother who took the DUI. He wanted the scapegoat to absorb the sin. I looked at Caleb. Then I looked at Emily. She looked up at me, her eyes wide and haunted. She wasn't just scared. She was confused. She was realizing she had married a stranger. Tell them, Caleb pleaded. Tell them I'm a good guy. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I had rehearsed in my head for a decade. No, I said. Caleb blinked. What? I'm not going to tell them that, I said, unbuttoning my jacket and loosening my tie. Because it's not true. You're not a good guy, Caleb. You're a bully who has been protected by his parents for 35 years. And today, the insurance policy just expired. The silence in the green room was heavy, suffocating. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. Caleb scrambled to his feet, the cake knife clattering to the floor. What did you say? I said I'm done lying for you, I said, stepping further into the room. I didn't look at my brother. I looked at Emily. Emily, has he told you why I wasn't invited today? Emily shook her head slowly, clutching a throw pillow like a shield. He said you were jealous, that you caused drama, that you hated our happiness. Right? I nodded. The jealous brother narrative. Classic. I turned to Caleb. Did you tell her about the Ferrari, Caleb? Shut up, Caleb hissed, his face turning that dangerous shade of purple again. Don't do this, Joshua. Did you tell her about the DUI in the Porsche? I continued, my voice raising just a decibel. The one where you drove drunk, crashed into a pole, and Dad tried to make me take the felony so you could keep your job? Mr. Sterling stepped forward. What DUI? His background check was clean. Of course it was, I said, because I paid $10,000 to a specialized lawyer to plead it down to a reckless driving charge and seal the record. I paid the fines. I paid for the car repairs. Caleb walked away spotless. That's a lie, Caleb shouted, but his voice cracked. He looked at Mr. Sterling, panic rising. He's lying. He's always been jealous of my success. Success? I laughed. It was a genuine laugh this time, fueled by pure absurdity. Let's talk about your success, Caleb. The big CEO. The heir to the family empire. I pulled my phone out. I tapped the screen and held it up. It was a PDF of a bank statement. Joshua, stop. It was my mother. She had slipped into the room behind me, unnoticed. She lunged for my phone, but I held it out of reach. Don't you dare. You will ruin us. You ruined yourselves, I said, pushing past her. I walked over to Mr. Sterling and showed him the screen. What is this? Mr. Sterling asked, squinting at the numbers. That, I said, is the balance sheet of Miller & Sons, my father's company. The company Caleb is supposed to inherit. The company you just invested $2 million into as a wedding gift. Mr. Sterling's eyes widened. It shows insolvency. Since 2024, I confirmed. The business has been dead for 2 years. Dad made bad investments. Caleb spent the operating capital on lifestyle branding, trips to Dubai, leased cars, designer clothes. But the dividends? Mr. Sterling looked at Caleb, then at my father who was now standing in the doorway, pale as a ghost. Caleb showed me the dividend reports. Faked, I said, or rather, funded from a different source. I turned to Caleb. You think you're rich, Caleb? You think you're a big shot? Who do you think pays the mortgage on Mom and Dad's house? Who do you think paid for the lease on that Lamborghini you drove here today? Caleb looked confused, genuinely confused. Dad pays for it. The company pays for it. The company has no money. I roared. The sound bounced off the walls. I pay for it. Me, the jealous brother, the failure. I have been transferring $20,000 a month into the company account for 2 years to keep the lights on because Mom cried and said Dad would have a heart attack if he went bankrupt. I saw the realization hit Caleb like a physical blow. His knees buckled. He looked at his parents. Is that true? He whispered. Dad looked at the floor. Mom covered her face with her hands, sobbing. You told me we were fine, Caleb stammered. You told me I had a trust fund. You had a brother, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. You had a brother who worked 80-hour weeks to prop up your fantasy life because he was taught that family matters more than truth. But you know what? You fired me. You erased me from the guest list. So, consider my resignation accepted. I turned to Emily. She was standing up now. She wasn't crying anymore. The tears had dried up, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. Emily, I said gently, the ring on your finger, the 3-carat solitaire. She looked at her hand. I paid for the insurance on it last month because Caleb's credit card was declined, I said. It's not an heirloom. It was bought on credit. Emily looked at Caleb. It was a look of pure disgust. It's the look you give something you stepped in on the sidewalk. You're a fraud, she said softly. Emily, baby, please. Caleb stepped toward her, reaching out. It's complicated. Finances are complicated. I was going to fix it. Once the merger happened. The merger, she laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. You mean my dowry? You were marrying me to pay your debts. No, I love you, Caleb cried. You grabbed me by the hair because I wasn't posing right for a photo, she screamed. You don't love me. You love the reflection of yourself you see in my eyes. Well, guess what, Caleb? The mirror is broken. She grabbed her left hand. She struggled for a second, yanking the ring over her knuckle. She pulled it off. She didn't hand it to him. She threw it. It hit him square in the chest and bounced onto the carpet. We're done, she said. Not because of her. Not because of the video. Because of you. Because you are a small, violent, lying man. She turned to her father. Daddy, get me out of here. Mr. Sterling nodded. He looked at my father. My lawyers will be in touch. About the assault. And about the fraud regarding my investment. If I find out you solicited my money knowing you were bankrupt. He left the threat hanging. It was heavier than any shout. The Sterlings moved toward the door. I stepped aside to let them pass. Mr. Sterling paused in front of me. He looked me up and down. You're Joshua? He asked. Yes, I said. You should have been the one on the invite, he said. You're the only man in this room. He walked out with his daughter. The door closed, and then there were four. Me, Caleb, Mom, Dad. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. For a long minute, nobody moved. The energy in the room had shifted. The illusion was gone. The golden child was just a man in a torn suit with no job, no wife, and no money. And the scapegoat was holding all the cards. My mother broke the silence first. She rushed over to Caleb, who was staring blankly at the wall. Oh, my poor baby, she cooed, trying to hug him. It's okay. She wasn't right for you. She was too high maintenance. I watched her. It was fascinating in a sick way. Even now, facing total ruin, her instinct was to rewrite reality to protect him. Then my father turned to me. His face was purple. Are you happy? He snarled. Are you happy now? You just destroyed this family. You just humiliated your brother in front of the most powerful man in the state. I didn't destroy anything, I said calmly. I just turned on the lights. The roaches were already there. You ungrateful. Dad stepped toward me, finger pointing. After everything we did for you, we raised you. We gave you a home. You gave me a roof. I corrected. I made it a home. And by the way, I paid for that roof for the last 24 months. You think money buys you the right to betray us? Dad yelled. Family sticks together. You should have lied. You should have told Sterling it was a misunderstanding. Why? I asked. So Caleb could beat her in private next time? So he could drain the Sterling fortune like he drained yours. He made a mistake. Mom cried from the floor, rocking Caleb. He's sensitive. He's 35, Mom. I shouted. He's not sensitive. He's spoiled. And you did this. You created this monster. You fed him every time he cried. And you starved me every time I succeeded. Well, guess what? I'm done starving. I looked at my phone. I opened my banking app again. What are you doing? Dad asked, eyeing the phone nervously. I'm canceling the standing order, I said, tapping the screen. The monthly transfer to Miller and Sons. Cancelled. No, Dad gasped. Joshua, you can't. The mortgage is due on the 1st. The car leases. Not my problem, I said. Sell the house. Sell the cars. Maybe Caleb can get a job delivering pizzas again. I hear the tips are good if you're fast. I turned to leave. If you walk out that door, Dad threatened, his voice shaking. Don't you dare come back. You are dead to us. I stopped. I looked back at them. A broken tableau. The golden child, reduced to a weeping mess. The mother, an enabler to the end. The father, a king with no kingdom. Dad, I said softly, I've been dead to you for years. I was just the ghost who paid the bills. I walked out. I walked down the hallway, past the stunned staff who were cleaning up the broken glass. I walked out into the cool evening air. Elena was waiting by the car. She had a cigarette in her hand. She only smokes when she's stressed. Well? She asked, dropping the butt and crushing it with her heel. Did you fix it? No, I said, unlocking the car. I broke it. Completely. Good, she said. She looked at me. How do you feel? I paused, hand on the door handle. I checked inside myself. Was I sad? Was I guilty? I felt light. I felt like I had been carrying a backpack full of rocks for 3 decades, and someone had just cut the straps. I feel hungry, I said. Let's go get a burger. We drove away. I looked in the rearview mirror as the Grand Oak Resort faded into the distance. I saw the flashing lights of the police cars finally entering the gate, probably called by Mr. Sterling. My phone started buzzing again. Text messages from Dad. Voicemails from Mom. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I picked it up. I went to the settings. I selected Block Contact for Mom, then for Dad, then for Caleb. The buzzing stopped. The drive back to the city was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was full of possibility. That night I slept for 10 hours. Dreamless, deep sleep. The next morning the fallout began. But this time I wasn't the one sweeping it up. I was the one reading about it in the news. Viral groom assault video leads to lawsuits. Sterling family withdraws investment from Miller and Sons. I read the headlines with my morning coffee. I felt a strange detachment. It was like reading about characters in a book I had finished writing. I went to work. I sat in my office. I looked at the view. I had lost my family. I had lost the people I was biologically programmed to love. But as I looked at the city below, I realized something. I hadn't lost anything real. I had only lost the illusion that they would one day love me back. And losing an illusion isn't a loss. It's a liberation. The silence that followed my departure from the Grand Oak Resort didn't last long. It was replaced by the roar of a legal and social hurricane that I had predicted. But even I underestimated the ferocity of the winds. For the first week, I didn't leave my apartment except to go to the office. I didn't have to. The world brought the news to me. It was everywhere. The video of Caleb grabbing Emily by the hair had gone viral. Not just local viral, but national news viral. It had millions of views on TikTok and Twitter. The comments section was a tribunal, and the verdict was unanimous. Guilty. But the internet's rage is short-lived. The real damage was happening in courtrooms and boardrooms, places where my brother had no power and my father had no more leverage. Mr. Sterling, Emily's father, was a man who prided himself on two things: his family's safety and his business acumen. My brother and father had insulted both. The retribution was swift, calculated, and absolute. 3 days after the wedding, the lawsuit dropped. It wasn't just a civil suit for the cost of the wedding. It was a fraud investigation. Mr. Sterling's lawyers had dug into the Miller and Sons financials, the same ones I had exposed, and found that my father had solicited the $2 million investment using falsified projection reports. Since Caleb was the signatory on the deal, he was named as a co-conspirator. I remember sitting in my office reading the Wall Street Journal. There was a small article in the business section. Local developer Miller and Sons files for Chapter 7 bankruptcy amid fraud allegations. Chapter 7. Liquidation. It wasn't a restructuring. It was a funeral for the company my grandfather had built and my father had hollowed out. Elena walked in, placing a cup of coffee on my desk. She didn't look pitying anymore. She looked like a general reporting on the enemy's movements. "They're being evicted," she said simply. I didn't look up from the paper. "The office. The house," she said. "The bank called in the mortgage note. Apparently, your father used the house as collateral for a high-interest bridge loan 6 months ago to pay for Caleb's engagement party. When the company filed Chapter 7, the bridge loan defaulted immediately. I finally looked up. The house. The sprawling estate in the suburbs where I had grown up. The house where I had been told to stay in my room while Caleb entertained friends. The house where the Ferrari had sat in the driveway while my scholarship offer gathered dust. "When?" I asked. "Sheriff's sale is in 30 days, she said. "But they have to vacate by Friday." I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't joy. It wasn't sadness. It was the feeling of a heavy book finally being closed. "Do they have a place to go?" I asked. It was a practical question, not an emotional one. "I heard your Aunt Carol took them in," Elena said, a smirk playing on her lips. "Into her guest room. The one with the cat litter boxes." I let out a short, dry laugh. Aunt Carol, the gossip queen who started this whole avalanche with one Facebook post, was now their only refuge. There was a poetic justice in that. I didn't call them. I didn't offer to help. That was the old Joshua, the fixer, the scapegoat who thought he could buy love with stability. The new Joshua stayed in his office and signed a contract with a new client, a tech firm that had seen how I handled my own family crisis and decided they wanted that kind of ruthless clarity on their retainer. The retainer fee alone was enough to buy a small house. Speaking of buying things, I did something I had promised my 18-year-old self I would do. I went to the Porsche dealership. For years, I had driven sensible sedans, reliable, invisible cars. I told myself it was because I was practical. But deep down, I knew it was because I was afraid. I was afraid that if I bought something nice, something for me, it would be taken away. Or I would be mocked for trying to be like Caleb. I walked onto the lot. The salesman sized me up. Jeans, a blazer, no tie. He didn't rush over. He probably thought I was a tire kicker. I walked straight to a 911 Turbo S in agate gray. It was understated, powerful, a machine built for engineering perfection, not just for showing off at valet stands. The salesman finally wandered over. "She's a beast," he said casually. "But there's a waiting list." "I don't want to wait," I said. "And I don't want to finance." I pulled out a cashier's check. I had gone to the bank that morning. The salesman's demeanor changed instantly. The transaction took less than an hour. Driving that car off the lot, it was a sensory experience I can barely describe. The smell of the leather, the weight of the steering wheel, the sound of the engine behind me. It didn't feel like I was showing off. It felt like I was finally inhabiting my own life. I drove to the coast that weekend. Just drove. No destination. No family obligations. No crisis to manage. Just me and the road. 6 months passed. The noise died down. The internet moved on to the next scandal. But the reality of what happened settled into concrete. Caleb took a plea deal on the assault charge. He avoided jail time barely thanks to a public defender because I refused to pay for a private attorney. He got 3 years of probation, mandatory anger management, and 500 hours of community service. But the real sentence was his life. He was unemployable in the finance sector. His name was toxic. The golden child was now a 36-year-old man delivering food for an app, driving a beat-up Honda Civic because the Lamborghini was repossessed the day after the wedding. I ran into Emily by accident. It was a Tuesday morning in October. I was grabbing an espresso at a cafe near the courthouse. I was there for a client, when I heard a familiar voice. "Joshua." I turned. It was Emily. She looked different. At the wedding, she had been a doll, heavy makeup, hair sprayed into a helmet, wearing a dress that looked uncomfortable. Now she was wearing a simple trench coat and jeans. Her hair was loose. She looked younger, lighter. "Emily," I said, "I almost didn't recognize you." "That's the point," she smiled. It was a genuine smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes yet. There was still trauma there. You don't get over public humiliation in 6 months. "How are you?" I asked. "Better," she said. "I'm in therapy. It helps." Turns out, I had a bit of a savior complex. I thought I could fix him. I thought if I just loved him enough, the angry part of him would disappear. "We both made that mistake," I said quietly. She nodded, looking down at her cup. "My dad wanted to destroy him completely, you know. He wanted to ensure Caleb never worked again. I had to ask him to stop. Not for Caleb's sake. For mine. I just wanted it to be over." "It is over," I said. "Is it?" She looked up at me. "I heard about your parents. They're living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side now." "I heard that too," I said. "I haven't visited." "Good," she said fiercely. "Don't. I saw the emails Caleb sent you. The ones you blocked? He tried to send them through my friends." I stiffened. "What did they say?" "The usual," she sighed. "That you're ungrateful. That you stole his birthright. That you poisoned me against him. He takes zero responsibility, Joshua. Zero. He truly believes that you are the villain in this story because you stopped paying for the stage he was performing on." She reached out and touched my arm. "You saved me that day. If you hadn't come into that green room, if you hadn't told the truth about the money, I might have stayed. I might have believed his lies about stress. I might have married him. Thank you. I did it for myself, mostly, I admitted. That doesn't make it less heroic, she said. Take care of yourself, Joshua. You deserve to be the main character for once. She walked away, blending into the crowd. I watched her go, feeling a sense of closure I didn't know I needed. I thought I was in the clear. I thought the silence from my family was final. But narcissists don't let go that easily. A week later, a letter arrived at my office. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was my mother's script, loopy, decorative, pretending to be elegant but shaky at the edges. My secretary asked if she should shred it. No, I said. I need to read it. I sat at my desk and opened the envelope. A single sheet of cheap-lined paper fell out. My dearest Joshua, I am writing this because your father refuses to. He is a broken man, Joshua. He sits in his chair all day and stares at the wall. The doctors say it's depression, but we know what it is. It's a broken heart. We lost the house. We lost the cars. We lost our standing in the club. Aunt Carol is trying to be kind, but her house is small, and Caleb is sleeping on the sofa. It is undignified. I know you are angry. I know we made mistakes. We weren't perfect parents, but we did everything for the family. We tried to protect Caleb because he is fragile. You were always so strong, Joshua. You didn't need us the way he did. We thought you understood that. We hear you are doing very well. Aunt Carol says you bought a Porsche. It hurts me to think of you driving such an expensive car while your brother takes the bus to his community service. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like the boy I raised. We are not asking for much. Just enough to get a small rental of our own. Just enough to help Caleb get a suit for interviews. He can't get a job looking like a beggar. Please, Joshua, be the bigger person. Be the son I know you are. Love, Mom. I read the letter twice. The first time, I felt a flicker of the old guilt. The conditioned response to fix it. It's just a small rental. I can afford it. It's sad that Dad is staring at the wall. But then I read it again. You were always so strong. You didn't need us. That was the lie. That was the poison. I did need them. I needed them to come to my graduation. I needed them to protect my college fund. I needed them to invite me to the wedding. I needed them to love me, not my utility. They didn't see me. Even now, in the wreckage of their own making, they didn't see me. They only saw my wallet and my strength as a resource to be harvested for Caleb. I didn't shred the letter. I folded it neatly and placed it in my safe. It wasn't a request for help. It was a receipt for the transaction that I had finally closed. I didn't reply. Silence is an answer. In fact, it's the loudest answer there is. I went home that night to my apartment. It was quiet, but it wasn't the empty, lonely quiet I used to feel. It was the quiet of a sanctuary. I had built a life, a real one. My clients respected me because I was good at my job, not because I was someone's son. My friends, like Elena, stuck by me because they liked who I was, not what I could buy them. I was 32 years old. I had no parents, no brother, and a blocked phone contact list. And for the first time in my life, I was free. 1 year later, I was standing on the balcony of a new condo I had just purchased. It overlooked the city skyline, the same city where I had spent years running around trying to put out fires that my family started. It was Thanksgiving. Usually, this was the worst day of the year. It was the day I would drive to the estate, braced for insults. It was the day I would watch Caleb carve the turkey while Dad made toasts to Caleb's potential, ignoring my actual achievements. It was the day I would hand over checks to cover unexpected expenses, just to keep the peace. Today, there was no drive, no insults, no checks. Inside, Elena was laughing. She and a few other friends were setting the table. There was wine. There was music, jazz, not the stuffy classical music my father insisted on. I looked out at the city lights. I thought about Caleb. I heard through the grapevine that he was working at a car rental agency near the airport. It was ironic, really. The boy who crashed Ferraris was now renting out Ford Fiestas to tourists. I wondered if he was humble now. Probably not. He was probably telling anyone who would listen that he was a victim of a corporate conspiracy or a jealous brother. I thought about my parents. They were still in the small apartment. They were surviving. They had their social security. They had each other. They had the narrative they clung to like a life raft. I used to wonder if I went too far. Did I humiliate them more than necessary? Was there another way to draw a line without burning the whole bridge down? The tricky thing about finally standing up for yourself is that your body is so used to blame. It tries to turn even your liberation into another thing you did wrong. But then I look at my life now. I look at the bank account that grows because I'm not draining it to support a lie. I look at the mirror and see a face that isn't tight with stress. I look at the people inside my apartment. Friends who have seen my scars and never once handed me a knife to make more. I realize something I'd never allowed myself to say out loud when I was in the fog. Family isn't a free pass to hurt you without consequences. Love without accountability isn't love. It's control. Forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. And sometimes, the most powerful form of revenge isn't screaming or exposing or even walking away in flames. It's quietly, firmly refusing to be the person they can hurt and then rely on to fix the narrative. You get to decide what role you play in your own story. Are you the background character, the scapegoat, the fixer? Or do you finally step into the main role and let the rest of them adjust or fade into the distance? After everything that happened, I didn't get a happy, perfect family ending. I didn't get the tearful reconciliation where they realized my worth. What I got was something better. I got a life where I know I can survive without their approval. A life where my boundaries are not up for debate. And a story that, for once, belongs entirely to me. The door to the balcony opened. "Joshua," Elena called out. "Turkey's ready. And don't worry, I didn't burn it." "I'm coming," I said. I took one last look at the view. The sun had set, and the city was glowing. It was beautiful. I turned my back on the dark, empty sky and walked inside, into the light, into the warmth, into the noise of people who actually gave a damn about me. I closed the door behind me, and I locked it. If you are reading this, maybe you are the Joshua of your family. Maybe you've been told you're dramatic for reacting to cruelty. Maybe you've been edited out of your own story so many times you've started believing you don't belong in it. Here is the lesson I learned the hard way. You cannot save people who are addicted to their own dysfunction. You cannot buy love from people who only see you as a transaction. The moment you stop playing your assigned role, the play falls apart. Let it fall. It's scary to walk away. It's scary to be the one who says no more. But on the other side of that fear is a freedom you can't imagine. This is the moment that changed everything for me. Not the moment I made my first million or the moment I bought the Porsche. It was the moment I looked at the people who raised me and realized that I was allowed to outgrow them. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for walking through this fire with me. It wasn't easy to relive, but it feels good to finally put it down. If the story resonated with you, if you've ever had to choose your sanity over your family, or if you just believe that the truth is worth fighting for, please do me a favor. Smash that like button and comment the word good below. Tells me that you understand. Tells me that I'm not alone. And it tells the algorithm that stories about standing up for yourself matter. I'm Joshua, and I'm finally living my own life.